Hello guys, this is the part 4 of the video series where I'm explaining how I was making a female character. So as we may see, the mesh of the model I sculpted in Zbrush is literally looking like trash and we can do almost nothing with it. So I started from the head and my goal was to optimize the mesh of the model. And I'm doing that since I want to follow the steps of the production ready model. I want to properly make UVs and do some realistic textures, and finally in the presentation time I'm going to give it a pose. So my model will be looking good and I will be able to put it in my portfolio. And to get that, I need to have clean loops of polygons around the face and body parts of the model, like eyes, nose, mouth and ears. One of the common rules applied to retopology is that it is good to start with large shapes and gradually pass to smaller areas. The same rule normally applies to sculpting and drawing, like you start with the big blocks shapes and then go to the smaller and smaller details in your work. In retopology, that means that I normally start building big quads around the desired areas, and then if I need to cover more detailed parts of the body, I go and subdivide them to get denser topology. So I covered the head and moved to the body. I started with the loops around the shoulders, elbows and the wrists. Then I switched to the chest and torso area. After completing it, I did loops around legs, and if you noticed, I'm making loops around the areas that are going to be bent or moved most. After placing those loops, I started covering with quads the empty spaces in between. I was also making a lot of manual tweaking the vertices in order to get the size of the polygons more or less uniformed. After main parts of the body were covered, I connected the body with the head. And the important thing was to match the count of the edges which were coming out of the body from the one side and the head from the other. Then I started making loops around the fingers, connecting the fingers between, covering the rest part of the hand and finally connecting the hand with the wrist. The same technique I used for the feet. I started with the fingers, then covered the feet and connected all that with the rest of the body. Here is not much things to comment. The next phase was to finalize the topology of the model and adding additional loops around some important parts of the body. I optimized the topology around the elbow so it would better react when the hand is going to bend. Same thing I did in the knees and added more loops around fingers. Next up, I decided to get better topology around the neck to follow shapes of the anatomy of neck and trapezius. So I deleted everything around the neck and started doing topology around the neck and shoulder area again. After I finished with the body, I did retopology of her nails one by one on the hand, and then I did the same on the feet. It's important to note that to optimize the process a little bit, I did only one part and then mirrored it over to the other. And finally, I thought I finished the retopology, and overall it took me around 1 week of work, since I was not very much consistent. But I remembered that my girl had very crappy eyes, which were simply 2 spheres. And I didn't test how they will be looking if I paint them. So I went back to Zbrush to paint them and test them. And of course I found that they look bad and I had to redo them from scratch. Again, a lot of work was done with tweaking the model's eyelids and playing the size of the eyeballs until I finally wasn't satisfied. This process also included importing the retopologized body from Blender into Zbrush and projecting it onto the sculpt and placing the final eyes model in the right place. Again, it took me some time, a couple of days going back and forth. After I finished with the eyes in Zbrush, I came back into Blender and replaced them with the eyes with the cleaner topology and gave it the shape closer to the real anatomy of the eye. With these eyes, it should nicer catch the highlights in the final render. Since the shape of the eye was very simple, I decided to make UVs right away. And now I can say that retopology phase was finally done. After that, I jumped back in Zbrush and did a test painting of the eyes and adjusted their position in the head again. I switched to Blender to make the dress. I took this reference of the girl, so I wanted to match this style of dress she wearing more or less. To start from something, I decided to use the existing body topology and extracted the dress from it. I was fixing the topology of the dress, subdividing it, switching to sculpting mode and giving it proper shape from time to time. Also, I was optimizing topology of the dress a little bit. When the basic shapes of the dress was done and it had clean topology, I exported the dress in Zbrush and started detailing it. I added some wrinkles and tweaked the shape here and there. Again, I was trying to match the reference of the dress that I had. In the next part of the work, I decided to give my girl some test blocky hairs to have at least some idea how she will be looking in the end and where the model is going overall. As I said in the previous videos, I'm going to give this girl realistic textures and hence I will need to make her realistic hairs in the end. So this was just to get something visual at this stage of the work. I was using the same anime girl reference for the hair as well. And I must say I liked how she was looking in general in the min. Then I came to Blender again and optimized the topology of the dress, since I didn't like the pinching appeared in the sides under the armpits when I was subdividing it. After it was done with the dress, I decided to fix the shapes of the shoes and make the straps. I have deleted half of the body so that it wouldn't disturb me when I was using transparency in the side view. Remember, in the previous videos I did only the bottom and the back part of the shoes. So I dropped the reference image in and was simply trying to match the shapes with extruding and moving the points. To preview the final shapes of the straps better, I was using Solidify and Subdivision modifiers. Playing with the shapes of the shoes took roughly around 1 or 2 days. And I think it was worth it, since it came out pretty good. To visualize the model with all the clothes on and with hair and the eyes, I exported the shoes in Zbrush and decided to give her temporary vertex painting. I painted her eyes a little bit more to make them look more expressive and outlined eyebrows as well. Also, I gave a little bit of color variation to hairs. And first I gave dark color to the dress to match the reference, but after that I decided to change it to something brighter. To visualize the final pose and give the model a little bit more life, I played with the positions of her limbs and head using masking tools and gizmo in Zbrush. So in this video I covered a huge part of the work, and as you noticed, it included a lot of back and forth and jumping between the softwares to utilize the most powerful tools of each one and finally get to the desired point. In the next part I'm going to make the full body UV mapping in Blender and make some texturing in Substance Painter, which I expect will be very fun because I love adding some realism to the model. For now I must leave, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. Good luck everyone, and bye bye.